obviously the results, haven't been going our way, and there's been a lot of things behind that. The owners know where we stand. We want to spend more money. Who made the deal with the devil last year and didn't tell us, right? Like, if you just let me know.
Will Kuntz, everybody!
How are we doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
No doubt. Bro, this is crazy. Thank you for coming, bro.
So
you should see the list of things he told us we're not allowed to talk about. It's crazy.
It is. I mean,
it's a
list.
You told me we're here to talk about the Knicks.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yo, that's right. Let's talk about how much Boston sucks.
Okay, so let's start this way.
I was gonna say we should probably talk about last year first, right?
Right. But I want to say this first, just because I think the idea again of like players or front office joining people on a comedy podcast could make it seem as if people are not taking things seriously. So I just want to. This is just a warning, just a thing of like, this is a comedy show. There will be jokes told, but that doesn't take away from the seriousness of the matter. And we all see the record for the LA Galaxy. Yeah. So I don't want people to misconstrue that even if we might be a little bit playful, that this man doesn't take his job incredibly seriously and is also under clearly a little bit of pressure. So I just want to.
So first question, Will, how's it going to feel when someone posts this on Reddit and cuts out everything?
That's the one. And I wanted to just add, I apologize already for all the clips being cut out of context.
It's happening as we speak.
The internet is the internet. There's not much we can do about it, but the disclaimer was told up top. So, Will, I just want to say thank you for joining us. I know this is again, it's a difficult season. So I obviously, the last time you were on, a couple weeks later, y'all win MLS Cup, and now
congratulations!
Hey, you're welcome for our contributions to that. But can you just talk about? I mean, obviously, from that high to where everything is now, what's it like in these meetings and everything?
Yeah, like, what's it like when it's your fault?
What's the GM? What are the conversations like? I mean, is it panic? Is it trust? Is it, where is it at right now?
Yeah, look, it's definitely different this year. Probably better to have a year like this after a year like last year, but there's no doubt it's really hard, right? And you've got pretty much the same group of guys, right? And some new guys who were, are really excited to be at the club. We're really excited to join a few months ago, but obviously the results, haven't been going our way, and there's been a lot of things behind that, right? But when you're losing games and the opponent doesn't even take a shot, I mean, 0 XG against Kansas City, it's
insane.
It crosses to the point of like this is like something else, right? Like who made the deal with the devil last year and didn't tell us, right? Like if you just let me know. But look, it's MLS, right? And as bad as anything can feel at one given time, it's not a single table league. And, we know if we string some wins together, we're running out of daylight for sure, but you can still, make a late push. And our group isn't giving up, right? Nobody's sort of panicking and saying, how do we do this? Guys are looking around and trying to hold each other accountable, trying to figure out how we can go forward. But, it's way more fun when you win, right? And that hasn't been happening this year. And, we all feel that.
Yeah. How difficult does the job shift from day to day? Because I'm sure the pressure, and you've been involved in sports for a very long time, you understand wins and losses create a different atmosphere, right? But to have that shift go from the high of all highs and winning MLS Cup and, emotionally hugging players that were injured for that game and all of this back and forth to this shift of like, oh my God, bro, they didn't even kick the ball and they somehow beat us.
Right.
To go from that to that, how big is that shift?
It's probably a little less shocking than it looks on the outside because, I'm a process guy, right? So even last year when we're winning games, I'm like the turd in the punch bowl, right? I'm like, oh, but I see we're not doing this well, right? Or this could have gone the other way. Or, when you win a game where you get outshot or the XG differential is really big, again, like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but like I'm sitting there looking like, man, like we can't play like this and win. And so, you see some of the same underlying issues we had last year and some of the same, strong things this year. But it's, it's tough. It's a different vibe. And we're just trying to figure out, like, how do we keep focusing on the things that are going well and not give up? Because, we also had Champions League, right? And we had to go down. We went from Vancouver on a Saturday to go Cartago, Costa Rica, midweek, went down to Monterrey. You have to be ready for those games, a different tournament. So you're juggling a lot of different things and a lot of different injuries and guys, and trying to make sure they say, hey, look, sometimes the results aren't as good as the performance, right? And sometimes it's the opposite, but we really need to just focus on our performance and figure out, again, how we can turn this thing around.
Now, I told my wife what was happening, right? You were going to be on the show. She's a little different than I am. So she has a suggestion for you. She said, sage the stadium. You know what I mean? Burn some sage, you feel me?
Bro, I think Diego Fagundes was the guy. Like, we got some garlic hanging up above the locker room door. There's something else there now, we got some stuff going on, right? So
okay, good.
I'm not above it, right? Live chickens on deck, like whatever it takes.
Go.
There's no bad ideas.
Right? Everyone, we're brainstorming. Put in the comments what you think the LA Galaxy should do.
We've been talking about this, especially since the season started, and after 3-4 games, we're like, what is going on with LA? And everybody has their theories, and then obviously the conversations about the roster rules in MLS and players that you had to get rid of and meeting salary cap issues and stuff like that. So let's just get it from the horse's mouth,
right?
Because we're sort of speculating. I'm like texting Tom Boger. I'm like, yo, what's up with this?
I'm texting Don Garber, and he's saying this is your mother, not Don Garber. You know what I mean?
So obviously, you had to get rid of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the players that left that are obviously notable. Obviously, Gaston Brugman, Joveljic, Marky Delgado. This is, you win MLS Cup, and then a couple days later, you're like, oh, we got to get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
So why? and maybe, obviously, I'm sure there's contract issues. Players want to have control of their own lives, so there's a lot going on. But in general, the theory we have is that, or what we were told was that the MLS Cup bonuses affect the salary cap in the next season, so that's why you have to, keep the salary cap down.
And maybe there's also other roster machinations that stop.
But from a GM, what were the challenges right after winning that MLS Cup in terms of the roster?
This is good because we can put everybody to sleep hearing me talk about the league rules, right? I mean,
we got fans. We got MLS sickos.
Look, it's a long sort of drawn out answer, but the short answer is we were about $2.5 million over the cap. With the same roster going into the offseason, right? And there's things like guys like Gabriel Peck and Dejan Joveljic, just because they turned 1 year older, they each became $500,000 more expensive on the cap, right? And there's things behind that. And we also pushed our chips into the table a little bit last year when we went for Marco, right? We knew that it was going to maybe put us in a difficult spot, but we're so close. We got to do whatever we can to increase our odds to win a championship, right? So we knew it was going to be difficult, and it's math, right? It's not like this was a surprise. You do get your bonuses that were achieved hit, against your salary budget number the next year. So, because we had a lot of guys who did everything, that's a real thing. And then when you have to re-sign somebody like Maya Yoshida, even if we put new bonuses into his contract, they are still counted as having been triggered because he played like every single minute last year and we won all the playoff games and all that. So you're up against it. But I think the real issue is, because I'm not making excuses. There have been other teams that every team that wins goes up against this. In MLS, the way the rules are structured, if you're going to lose a DP like Ricky, and if you're going to have a guy like Marco, your highest TAM player, dealing with a bulky knee, then it becomes really difficult to compete, right? When you lose a DP and you're dealing with injuries to whether it's a DP or high salary TAM guy.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do in MLS is have depth, right? And you're getting tested at positions that you just cannot possibly replace. And so, when you go back and you're like, look at every, MLS Cup winner of the last 10 years and be like, all right, next year, take out their best DP, right? And take out their highest non-DP in terms of salary and see what that roster looks like, right? That's where the league rules really hurt us. Like we can't, you have to be kind of fortunate in who gets hurt and when they get hurt. And there's no doubt that losing Ricky's, it's like taking, I was going to say it's like taking Steph Curry off the Warriors, but he came out the other night and they won, right? So maybe it's like taking Jokic, it's taking Jalen Brunson off the Knicks, right? Yeah. And that's it's a little guy who's the engine of the team, but and there are reasons why the league rules are the way they are, but it's impossible for teams to have replacements for great players. And so last year we were really fortunate that we got a ton of minutes in production from our 3 DPs. This year. We haven't even had one yet, and Joe Paintsill missed a lot of time, and Gabe and Joe both got hurt on Kansas City again. Like, what else can go wrong, right? Yeah. But that's the reality. That's for me. That's the thing about this league that makes it the hardest, right? If you have the wrong injury, you're just kind of toast, because in any other league in the world, you have a backup or you can go get somebody. Here, you're kind of handcuffed, right? And then, in the case of a guy like Dejan Joveljic, we're like, all right, maybe we can give him, a TAM deal and keep him. And, we're negotiating and we think we can get there. And then Tigres comes and is like, bro, we'll triple your salary. And you're like, that's kind of tough. And then Kansas City's like, we'll quadruple your salary. And you're like, all right, man, well, good for you. Get the bag and go. But because we have 3 guys already making that money, like I can't possibly pay Dejan what he would need to earn or what he can earn somewhere else. And he's got a baby on the way. And look, $4 million goes a lot further, or $3 million goes a lot further in Kansas City than it does in LA. And
for sure.
And I get that, right? So again, that's kind of the reality of our league. It's a problem of having success and having guys who produce. So it's a good problem to have. But it definitely makes it tough. And you only have 5 weeks between MLS Cup and the start of the preseason, right? So we're up against it. We're trying to do all this stuff. We just found out we don't have Ricky for the year, basically, or for most of the year in late November, right? So you're now trying to figure out, how do we do this without Ricky? Everything we've been doing was obviously having Ricky in the mix. And then, the question is, do we go away from having Ricky, right? Do we go away from our plan just for a 2025 plan or a first half of 2025 plan? Or do we keep the overall plan in place and put together a roster that we think is going to be best when we're healthy?
Yeah.
Oh God, I suck at playing chess. So this is making my head hurt. But I get the feeling I'm gathering is that, because I think it's easy for people on our side that don't have to deal with the day-to-day that you do to say, my personal belief is that the roster rules feel antiquated at this point. If teams, we don't need the league to survive day to day. If teams want to spend money they have, go spend it. I don't know why we're stopping people. I don't think parity is that important. I actually think we benefit from having a few super teams. It's up to people like you to go out and create that super team if you have ownership that's willing to spend. So that's my personal belief. You don't have to even blink if you don't want to.
I was talking to the commissioner yesterday, right? I went to the league offices and I said the same thing. When you think about it, we're the only league, like not just like in, like sport, like the only league where we don't have super teams, right? Every other super popular league, whether it's the NBA, MLB, Premier League, La Liga, they've got super teams, right? The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Celtics, the Lakers. It's not something that our fans don't like. People like watching really high quality teams. And so I think it's always a difficult decision for owners. It's a lot of owners too. It's like herding 30 billionaire cats to try and come to a decision. But the evidence is there that Americans like watching really good teams, right? And
everybody does. The whole world. Yeah.
And so
it's either you love them or this is the super villain in the league.
Right. Yeah. And if somebody's willing to do it, right? And look, you see what happens when Messi comes through. Like we built extra stands at the digs, right, for our game against Miami last year. They play in NFL stadiums in Kansas City and Cleveland, right? There's a real boost from having great teams come through, right? It's good for the league. And that's one thing I would love to see, again, trying not to get fired, but I think leaning into just the quality, right? Like making it about the quality and letting those owners who want to spend, and not forcing those who don't. And the reality is, we also have the playoffs, right? I think every European league would look different if there was a playoff system, right? Mm-hmm. Arsenal would probably have a title or two, right, in the last 15 years. That
hurt.
That's right. That's look, I gotta take shots so I can feel better about myself.
No, we're gonna edit that out. I don't know what you're talking about.
But like we also have that too. So like even if La Liga had a playoff system, it wouldn't always just be Real Madrid. You'd have a Villarreal or a Betis or somebody like that every now and then. And so
which is drama. That's pageantry. That's showcasing.
We have even more incentive to not fear super teams, right? Mm-hmm. I get it. If it's 38 games home and away, and whoever's got the most points is your champ, then it's a problem, right? Then you have a parity issue, right? And you look at the Premier League coming into every season, you're like, there's 3, maybe 4 teams that could even have a real shot at winning. But for us, look at Red Bull last year, right? I mean, they finished 7th in the Eastern Conference, and we're a goal away, a Forsberg post shot away from tying us up, right? So I think that's great for drama. I think it levels teams out. It kind of mitigates that downside of having super teams. Obviously helps me saying this working for the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think that's one thing that I speak. I think for my peers when I say we would really like to see something like that happen. I think it's good for the league.
When it comes to those conversations, you said you just had a meeting with Commissioner Don Garber, but like
By the way, we're available if there's another one happening.
Happy to contribute.
Just stroll by. I'll bring cannolis.
But as far as the, on a lot of shows, like Alexis just mentioned, definitely on our show, like we get frustrated with the rules and we want things to like.
Who are you telling?
So
you probably have binders of what the rules are. We don't even know half the rules.
We had the GM for Nashville, Mike Jacobs, on about 2 years ago, and
Long Island
we were
legend,
asking,
yeah, Long Island legend.
Oh yeah. And but as far as the conversations and even the frustration, how much is it emoted of like, yo, we hate this. The job is already.
Oh, you mean in like the GM WhatsApp group?
In the WhatsApp group, in the competition committee meetings. Yeah. Like, does it get heated when it comes to this like nerdy stuff with MLS of just like, yo, take the shackles off. Like, we're really trying to grow this. Like, how much of that is there? Or is it just generally polite, gentlemanly kind of conversation?
I think we're all kind of on the same page. Like we're all going through it, right? And we all have peers in different leagues that we talk to, right? And they're all like, what are you guys doing over there? But we're also, a very small piece of this pie, right? I go back to my time at the league office and Garth Lagerway, who's now president of Atlanta, but we'd have these GM calls and stuff like that. And Garth would always say the same thing, like, get rid of the salary cap. And it's like, okay, bro, but that's not going to happen, right? Like that's the.
That's a Garth Lagerway, bro.
We gotta get Garth on the show.
I tell you, you do got to get Garth. Yeah. Like, Garth is about as unfiltered as it gets. But it's like, look, the owners know where we stand. Like, but we want to spend more money, right? And we're not spending our money, right? It's easy for me to say, hey, take the salary cap rules away, but I'm not the guy stroking the check, right? So I think we also have to be very considered in how we ask for the loosening of restrictions, right? And that's where you can sometimes see things like a little bit differently, right? If you've got a really strong academy, then you might say, hey, I want us to be able to spend more on domestic players because I know I can generate revenue from my academy, right? Where if you're, a different club, you might say, hey, I need to be able to bring in like the Miami approach. I want to bring in top end players, internationally, right? And to do that, I need to be able to spend, money in a different way. And so, we're all kind of aligned on wanting to like loosen the rules, but then how do we do that? What does that look like? But it's, I think the WhatsApp thread is just like more.
It's essentially, it reminds me of like a kid asking to increase their allowance a little bit. It's just like, you can't be like, Mom, why are you such a hater? You don't want to see me thrive?
Look how much better I look in this 3D rendering of me wearing nothing but a mirror.
So you gotta come correct a little bit.
Definitely.
I get when I hear that, GMs, of course, you'd want to make your job easier, but necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And sometimes guardrails have you be creative, and that can offer a competitive advantage. Is there a possibility, or is pretty much it really is a playing field, or is there a possibility that maybe there's a specific thing that because of these rules, it allows you to have an advantage over another team that hasn't figured out this other way of, I don't want to call it a loophole, but essentially circumventing a thing by doing something else, or maybe reaching out to specific players. You know what I mean? Like, do these mechanisms maybe allow you to win?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps, right? My time at the league office helped me learn these rules. I mean, they're technically guidelines, not rules.
You're like when the FBI hires a hacker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a real catch me if you can situation.
They got you from they got someone on the inside, dude.
And part of it too is just like, I need to be able to explain to like a player and his agent why we're doing it like this, right? So take Maya Yoshida, right? It was our captain last year, played every game. His contract was up, and it's like I can't put any bonus in there for winning MLS Cup or for playing in MLS matches, right? Because you played in every game last year, and so they're going to just count it against the cap. And if you don't really have this understanding ahead of time, sometimes guys get out over their skis and they reach a deal, and then they work it back because the league's like, this doesn't work under the cap. Or if it's like, hey, we're gonna, we have to break up this transfer fee into 3 installments, but they can't be in like the same. They got to be in different years, right? Because that means you spread the money out over the cap. There's things like that, I think, where it really helps to know the league and the rules, just so you can explain it to somebody. Because everybody outside is, like I said, they're like, what are you guys doing, right? And it's just it's a reality, right? But there's definitely efficiencies you can create. Again, being creative with contract structure, how to work a trade in the league versus work a sale. There's real money, there's funny money, like the allocation. It's all it's really convoluted, right?
Where is this is a very, I guess, financial question. Where is the GAM kept? Where is that money?
It's a spreadsheet. It's not real.
Is the money an idea? Is it?
Can you tell he was the banker when we played Monopoly? Can you tell?
Please, I'm just like I want these questions answered.
Maybe there's a GAN card
just to conceptualize it.
Yeah, I think there's probably like a cold storage, like wallet somewhere
next to government cheese.
Right. But there's also just like an Excel document, right, that anybody can open and edit. Yeah, God forbid something happened to, I'm not sure we'd be able to like work out like where all the GAM went.
Let's go.
But yeah,
but I guess I mean the money the player receives the money, so it's like a deal with a bank.
It's kind of like a credit, right? Okay. It's like, look, we're gonna spend this money, but we charge you like this, and then
that's not your responsibility. You
right.
just
it's
know
just
that
how much we have, and like how much can I spend, like how does it work?
Thank
right?
God I wasn't a GM, because you're talking about like all these different ways of like, all right, we're going to do this in 3 installments, 4 installments. It sounds like me trying to buy my wife the engagement ring. But I mean, if I was the GM, I'd be like, look, we can only pay this much, but an extension's going to show up at your house. Right. You got a great room now. You can watch a game back there. Like, there's so many different ways. And I guess, we've said on the show, we would love if the cap was gone, just to open it up. And if you want to spend. I don't know if you second that. I've said that before.
You've said that. I don't. I think it at the very least should be much higher. But it's one of those things where as soon as the cap gets higher, then everybody gets paid a little bit more, and then you're at the same exact problem.
So I say luxury tax.
I think a luxury tax worked really well in baseball, right? I mean, and that lets the owners that are willing to spend on their team, they can do that, and then the owners who maybe don't can benefit from that, right? And so they're a little more okay with that.
Tampa Bay's back there.
Yeah, it was like the Reds and the Pirates when I was working in baseball. It's like they loved it when the Yankees came through or the Dodgers came through, because that meant like the stadium would be full and people would be excited, and the league value grows, right? People are watching games, so I think there's some of that. I think at times maybe we're too focused on the ceiling and not the floor. Right.
Ooh, that's
I'm not trying to call anybody out, but sometimes it's like, well, your roof's not up to code, and it's like, yeah, but you're standing in 4 feet of water in your basement, right? So I think there's sometimes where, we can kind of maybe push some teams to do a little more, but I think there's, you could even have a cap, but just have it be a lot higher, right? Because I think teams will sort of naturally price themselves out, right? Because revenues are what they are, and look, if we're giving more money to GMs and they're spending on the same players, like, maybe fire the GMs, right? Like I'm not doing my job if I'm just spending the same money or more money on the same roster, right? Like we have to make sure that we're doing something with it, and I think that's one thing. Again, this maybe works against my interest, right? But like put the pressure on the GMs, like you have in baseball. I was talking to one of my old buddies from the Yankees yesterday. He's like, you realize like you would have been fired twice already if you had to start like this in baseball. I was like, no, I get it, but I think that's a real thing too, right? Like the GM position's becoming much more nuanced, pressure packed as the money has increased. And look, I joined the league 11 years ago. We are spending so much more money now than we were back then. Like we got guys now who are like salary budget players who would have been DPs in the old world, right? So there is a lot of progress being made. Our GMs are getting a lot better, and it's 30, right? And we have guys from abroad, guys who grew up in the league, guys who came from other sports, but it's getting cutthroat, which I think is a really good thing. But again, we got to make sure that we're also being focused on efficiency, right? Because if we're just wasting our money, then that WhatsApp thread of GMs is like we're kind of shooting our foot off.
Yeah, I mean, we started this show in 2015, and even from then till now, it's pretty obvious the level, the quality in the league from team to team,
especially the median quality, is raising so much.
Yeah, I mean, when we started the show, I think the league minimum was like $67,000, something along those lines, and I don't know what's it at now.
It's like 100 now.
100. Yeah. Okay, so it's like,
and I think that year it actually got voted at 60 or 70. Like it got voted to that.
Yeah, it was like when I first came in, it was low.
Yeah. So you're seeing, I think that quality go up in that time as far as the quality of player. Another thing I wanted to ask, and this has just been something that's been on my mind for a while, but LA Galaxy and LAFC. Obviously, rivalry, a lot of competition. The one thing I think is odd that I don't think is really talked about that much is how many trades between the teams that there have been since LAFC joined Major League Soccer. There's
so many players who play for both teams.
I don't have the exact number, but I think it's like 6 or something like that. And I just think is this is this the league we want to be? I mean, you work there as well.
There's like 4 people who played for Tottenham and Arsenal, and they're hated.
Let's just get it. I mean, why do we normalize this, or should we be like, scowl a little bit?
Because like y'all are showing your like English bias right now, right? Because like everybody who plays for Inter plays for AC Milan, right? Like it's like if you look, it's like 80% correlation, right?
Yeah.
I think some of it is, Southern California is a really nice place to live, right? And if your contract's up at one of the clubs, I mean, like that was kind of my situation, right? Like my contract was up at LAC, and it was like, well, it's better.
Yeah, you're one of the names on the list.
And look, they're both historically really competitive teams in our league, right? And I think those players that want to stay working for really competitive clubs, like that's they're desirable destinations, right? I think that's really great, and so I think that's kind of behind it, and then obviously John and I have a relationship, and we used to talk about this when I was working for the Yankees, like would you ever make a trade with the Red Sox, right? And I remember. Cash and my boss was like, yeah, absolutely, I would. And our president was like, that's great. We're never doing that, right? So I get both sides.
I'm glad you
of it.
would.
Right.
We ain't doing it.
And then we always look at things and like, hey, like, does this make us better, in the long run, right? And, if you really believe that and your team believes that, then you shouldn't be afraid to pull the trigger with anybody, right? Even if your fans, start killing you for it.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, just, obviously if it's a good player and it meets within the roster rules, I mean, I guess you make that decision. I'm just saying, look, we're NYCFC fans, obviously. A Red Bull player, I don't even think, maybe it's just a Southern California change, you will, bro.
Hey, Mehdi Bellucci played for both.
Right, but the initial year, the expansion year, I mean it wasn't even a thought. Like it was just like you need to fill.
But
the
I think
roster.
that's the only one. I don't think Emil Forsberg will play for both. I guess I want to hear stories about Derek Jeter, but you can tell me that after. We can turn the mics off. I guess when you were on the show the first time, you said something that I think caught us all quite by surprise. We were joking around about like, oh, LA Galaxy. We know that for some people around the world, professional players, some of the biggest players. When they think MLS, they almost only think LA Galaxy, and now maybe Inter Miami because Messi's there. When they say MLS, they say LA Galaxy. I'm going to LA Galaxy. And they're like, no, you're not. You're going to FC Cincinnati. He's like, what? Never even heard of that. Like they think LA Galaxy is it. So you have the namesake that carries a lot of weight. And with that came, you told us like some big name players that reach out to you. Can you on this show reveal one big name player that you had a conversation with that it didn't work out?
I would not say. Just because they haven't retired yet. Like none of the guys I spoke with have retired yet, and so you want to, and they may not be on my discovery list. So you got to be careful
the discovery
about
list.
that.
We got to talk about that. I will say, you don't have to say the name, but if your phone rings and it's Neymar's father, pick it up. I'm just going to say that. Just pick it up. I'm not even making eye contact with him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, maybe you said that they haven't retired yet. Are there any players that have retired that you had conversations with that maybe you...
Or you tried to reach out to? And
not yet. Not yet. But it's only been, 18 months, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
I'll let you, when they do hang it up, I'll let you know.
There you go. There you go.
But we're trying to move away from those, kind of at the end of their career type of players too. So hopefully that's a long time.
No one tell Beckham.
Okay. Maybe we can move on and maybe we'll go back to some other stuff if Alexis has any questions. But I do want to talk about we're in New York, and this is where you're from. You grew up in Brooklyn. I don't think we talked about this that much on the last time, but we talked about it a bit more off air.
Yeah.
But you are from you born in Brooklyn, raised in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens.
Amazing.
The neighborhood I live in, basically.
And it's so it's pretty surreal. Like I went to high school in Cobble Hill and grew up in Brooklyn, and your background, obviously we talked a little bit about the working with the Yankees before, but when you are back in New York, what are the things that you first do? Obviously, visit
I thought you were going to ask if he's like become more LA now. You're like, are you cool with people making noise? Do you like the subway still?
I'm definitely getting softer. Like every time I come back, I'm like, that's a little dirtier than I remember it being, right? But I love being home, right? I mean, I've been in LA for 7 years now, but for me, it's just walking around, right? Because in LA, just like New York, you're surrounded by millions of people, but everybody's in their car in LA, right? And everybody's kind of in their own world. And like in New York, like, you're on the subway, like you're living it with everybody else, and you sometimes you can't ignore it, right? And so, there's some things like, go down to Dumbo, get a almond croissant from Almondine, the bakery there, walk to Brooklyn Bridge Park, get a slice from My Little. And now my daughter's here this week, so I get to take her around, and she's tripping because like she's like, there's just so much stuff happening all the time, right? So yeah, that's great. Just trying to like, soak up the energy of the city, right? I love being able to walk. It's such a walking city. My phone, my Fitbit's going crazy. Like, what is happening? Right? Did you put this on the dog? Like, what is
your Fitbit's like, hey, good for you, right?
It's like, who are you? Right?
Yes, we've been trying, dude.
But yeah, and try and get to the league office and see some of the people I used to work with, have some meetings. Just try and soak up New York, right? It's a great city any time of year. There's always sports happening, always friends here, people I grew up with.
Do you travel with the team every week or no?
Pretty much. I try to. It's it's harder now with a young kid at home, and my wife works a lot, but I think it's really important, right? Because especially MLS travel, it's better now that we charter, but back in the day, it was a commercial flight, and I'm really sort of sensitive of being that guy who just maybe jets in on the morning of a game or flies with ownership or isn't there. Like, I think when you're going through with the guys, especially in a season like this, right, where things aren't going well, to be there with them in the meal room, on the bus, on the plane when something gets delayed, or in the locker room after a game, I think that's really important, right? And when it comes time to have difficult conversations at the end of the year or any point during the season, having gone through with those guys doesn't make them easy, but I think it at least lets them know that I get Will, he's been through this with us. I know that
you were there shooting in the gym,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, he was
right?
there. Yo, he was in the hotel with us. He wasn't in the suite.
Also, I mean, I'm glad. The flights are chartered now. When you walked in, I knew you were a tall guy. You are very tall.
So you look like one of the players.
I mean, you should be either a proper center back or a center for the Lakers.
You know how everyone says you look like you kind of look related.
There's a little bit of that.
Yeah. You don't see it.
I'll take it. I mean,
he's a good-looking guy.
I'm like a foot shorter, but
well, yeah, you didn't get the good genes. I didn't say that. What kind of a GM are you? Like, when I was a manager of 172 salespeople in a former career, and I had something called a kill suit. I wore a suit when people were going to get fired, and people remembered that. And that way, every time I wore it, sales numbers would go up whenever I traveled to the different states. Are you that guy, or are you like arm around the player type of guy? Are you the peeking over your shoulder, like put a little pressure on him, like, hey man, you got to perform a little bit, and I'm going to be kind of hovering around you. How do you like to handle being that like sort of ever-present GM?
Yeah, I mean, I think I look at my role as kind of like hype man, right? I mean, there's so little I can do to impact the team on a daily basis, right? When you think about, our performance staff, right? Whether that's guys like, Adam Watterson or Tom Williams or Jim Liston, who are working with players in the gym, on the field, Greg and his coaching staff who are doing the technical stuff, our training staff who are, helping guys on the table. There's people who are like actually doing stuff that's helping us get better every day, and I'm just kind of like, hey, what's going on?
Look at this spreadsheet.
Right. Yeah. You don't get a bonus. You don't get a bonus. But no, I think it's like, look, you want to make sure that guys know that they're supported, right? And that's not just players, but that's staff, and they can come to me with anything like that. With respect to my staff, I'm very much a trust and delegate, right? Like, everybody knows what their targets are. They know what the expectation is. If you get your work done on time, on target, like, I'm not going to be, on you all the time, right? If things slip, right, that could be with the player, that could be, whether it's a personal issue. Sometimes guys are just showing up late. Sometimes there's things you got to talk about the coaching staff. We'll have a real conversation, right? And I'm not one to shy away from a difficult conversation, because I also think that sometimes if you don't address the real underlying issue, it might be easier in the moment, but long term, there's going to be problems with it, right? So, I try and identify the big problems and address those head on, and then the smaller problems, just try and smooth them out, and then just try and keep the, as Marco Royce would say, like keep the vibes high in the locker room, and just be around, right? We got to keep the vibes strong, and it's just it's a difficult job, right? It's hard to be a coach, it's hard to be a player. You're out in Front Street all the time, the pressure's on you, and so. I've been around, working sports for 22 years now. And so I think it's really important that I just sort of share my experience, try and keep things light, and understand, look, we all know the pressure, right? And social media is going to let you know that fans aren't happy or the crowd in the stadium or whatever. Like, but we're still, we're playing a game. We got to find the joy. We got to find the love. We got to be stronger together, and know that, like, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. All that matters is what we got in this room, right? And so I'm a big believer in that kind of approach, and letting people cook and do their work, right? I think that's a really important thing. And my job is to have smarter people than me and better people than me working kind of everywhere, and then do whatever I can for those people to help realize their goals, right? So if you want to be a GM, great. I don't want you to be GM of the Galaxy, maybe, but like I want you to get that job that you want as soon as possible, and whatever I can do to help you get the skill set that you need, that's my job.
Yeah, I think the you being on the show kind of expresses even that sentiment, because just I guess it was like a couple weeks ago that your comms folks reached out and be like, hey, Will's gonna be in New York. You'd be interested in doing the show? And there's a part of me that was like, Will Kuntz wants to do the show.
Yeah.
Does he know
why are you pranking us right now?
Does he know the season that
Are
they're
you
currently
busy that you're playing a prank on these two comedians?
No, but it says a lot about confronting that challenge, and it's like, why run away from the spotlight even when things are difficult? I mean, this is. I think
part of the gig.
Yeah, it says something to sometimes we have like players on the show and front office people, but I think this is even something. I'm sure players on the team will watch this interview and be like, all right, well, Will's on the front line for us,
That's our guy, bro.
And he's not just sitting in an office and trying to hide from any media attention. He's like, yeah, these are the problems right now. This is why we're in the situation that we're in. So just I mean, like, yeah,
some flowers.
Things are tough, but still, no, I applaud you for it.
Being a GM, we don't get a chance to hear the personal stories of the players, right? Sometimes a player has a bad game or has a string of bad games, and the fans will really get on them. And I'm one of those, right? From time to time, I'll be like, this guy's done, blah, blah, blah. Because that's the frustration you feel. How often, as a GM, would you say that that's personal life? They're human beings. We don't see them that way. It's like when you see your teacher at a supermarket, you're like, when you left school? They're like, we don't realize players have personal lives and relationships and, maybe a sick family member, something like that. How much of that sometimes when they're playing, do you think to yourself, I need to go and make sure that things at home are good and that their personal life isn't affecting the way they're playing? Because it can happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a real thing, right? And I think that's where when you have an aligned organization, right, with your front office, with your coaching staff, you can stay on top of those things, right? And the first thing is just having people feel comfortable that they can talk to you about stuff, right? Because there's, I say the same team, like the same roster is different from one season to the next, right? Somebody's overperforming, somebody's underperforming, new contract, baby mama drama, whatever it is. Somebody always gets arrested, right? Like you don't know when it's going to happen. Somebody gets injured, but there's always things that come up, right? And look, if it's a guy at the end of his career who suffers a big injury, it might be different from a guy who's at the start of his career, but it might be, equally devastating, right, for each guy, but they're just at different points of their lives, right? And you have to be empathetic to whatever might come up, and just try and let them know again that like whatever I can do to help you, that's my job, right? And I'm fortunate that we have the support of AEG behind us, right? So sometimes it's helping a player and his family with an immigration issue, right? Or might just be like, hey man, like go, can we set you up with some help, right? Whatever it is, if it might be child support or something away from the field, right? But yeah, these guys are real human beings, and we look at their, my college coach used to say, like, we take our tests in public, right? Like you could fail your chemistry exam and nobody's going to know, but like we take our tests in public, and John McCarthy had like a kid right before MLS Cup, but like he's still playing and training, like just having that, like I mean, sure. you got a kid, right? I mean, I don't even remember what it was like, but like I just remember like you weren't sleeping. You got 4 hours of sleep, and you're like, thank God I got 4. That's so much sleep, right? But even like babies happen, right? And these impact people, and you can see it in the training data sometimes, right? A guy's going through something, and it's reflected in his GPS work and training. And fans don't see that though, and fans don't necessarily know what's going on. And I think if fans maybe did, so they'd be a little more sympathetic, but. The reality is, it's a 1 or a 0, right? If you won, it's great. If you lost, you're trash, and that's okay.
The little heat map is like, hey, for some reason you were crying by the corner flag for a long time. Everything all right?
There's a wet map, and it's how about this mandatory vasectomies for LA Galaxy players? Now you're not going to have the baby drama.
I thought your dentist story was going to be like the wildest thing I heard for a minute, but like there you go, right?
I'm just spitballing. They say there's no bad suggestions.
I want to move on.
Well, the only bad suggestions are the ones you don't make.
I want to move on to something a little bit more positive, and maybe let's reminisce a little bit about MLS Cup. And as NYCFC fans, we were the biggest.
You really saved us from a lot. You saved us from a lot of sticks.
You You guys won at what cost? But the cost for us was, I mean, a little bit of pride.
They were like, "You got no cups," and then we were like, "They might have a cup."
So shout out to you. But look, it was cool. Also, when we were at MLS Media Day, so we interviewed Greg Vanney as well, and talking about being a part of Onside, the MLS documentary. But it was a wild story. I mean, from the time you did the show, then going into the playoffs, Riqui Puig playing on a torn ACL. And Greg Vanney, after having met him and spoken to him, we spoke to him for about like 10, 12 minutes. And Greg was like, who are these clowns? You know what I mean?
He was so sus in the beginning. He was like, his eyes were like, I don't trust
first
any of
3
you.
minutes were like, what are these guys about? And
that's every meeting I have with Greg, by the way. I just want to be clear.
I felt it wasn't just us. I'm like, this guy, this is why he's a good coach.
But there was it turned out to be a pretty dramatic and it was almost like a movie.
Storybook, yeah.
Yeah. So what were you doing? I'm reminiscing about when that final whistle blew and how that made you feel, and just talk about that moment a little bit.
No, it was great, right? And the final whistle blew twice, if you remember. Like there was I forget what happened. The ref called it back. It's we stormed the field and come back, and then you're like, I'm thinking it's like this is a reverse Gareth Bale LAFC situation, right? They're definitely going to bang one in now. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible, right? Like it felt surreal. Like such a wild swing from 2023 to last year. And then, I just remember looking for my parents up in the stands, because they flew out from New York, and, my dad still thinks I'm a schmuck for leaving baseball, right?
Yeah,
but
of course.
But at least he got to see that. So he's like, okay, maybe like what you're doing like a little bit. But no, just, to be there with family, to see, our players, what it meant to them, our staff, because, a lot of those guys, I came in, in May or March in 2023, but like they had been through it, for a longer time than that. And just having gone through so much, like sort of adversity and the fan reaction to everything that was going on, which really wasn't on the players, right? There were other things happening at the club. So it just felt incredible, right? It was like a total like dopamine rush, like just a relief, and like I was just so happy for our guys, like elated for our guys who put so much into it, and even for Ricky to be there on the field, like again, like playing without an ACL, right? And,
crazy.
He's little, but man, the little prick is tough, man.
Yeah,
he's a tough little bastard.
Was it a little bit of like, obviously, there's a lot of pride in that moment, especially when he, has the towel over his head and he's crying, and Greg Vanney's hugging him and all this stuff. After you find out what you find out, is as a GM, I'm sure there's like, man, this guy's a warrior. But it also has to be like, we invested a lot of money in you. What are you doing?
Yeah. Easy.
Take it easy.
Bubble wrap, my God.
It was kind of like, I mean, Ricky spent like the next few days like not on crutches, and I was like, God, like he's talking to the medical staff, and they're like, well, he can't tear it anymore, right? Like it's torn.
Right.
So, but I think that's also Ricky's mindset, right? Like he's like, look, it's he didn't want to be using crutches. Like there was something about just like being able to walk, and that's his mindset, right? Like I'm not hurt, I'm going to be all right. And so, you definitely like there's a reaction to seeing him walking around, but like. Again, the medical expert said like it's not going to make it worse, and he pushed his surgery back I think a week or two just to be able to kind of be around the group, and I thought that was a really important thing, right? Like having Ricky around, he was the MC for our celebration with the fans at the stadium,
nice.
The following day. So, again, that's like just part of like what made it so incredible, right? Just to see Ricky doing his like Willis Reed, celebrating, right?
Yeah. True Knicks fan, right?
And
there.
then
I was actually going to ask like. What's the private moment for you after winning MLS Cup? You go back to your office at some point, or maybe you have a moment to yourself at home. What's that like? What do you pop open a bottle of wine? Do you look over the last few months? Do you just have a moment to yourself?
Back to work, figuring out the roster.
Yeah.
Kind of the latter, right? I mean, like again, like I'm damaged goods like that. But no, like you just kind of like enjoy it for the night, right? And I've been lucky enough to win a few titles in my sports career, and like you just have to enjoy it, because there's always that point where everybody goes home, right? Like, all right, we did it, we did the thing. Enjoy your off season. Usually it's like 2 months, but we had 5 weeks. But there's that whole night, right? So just and then for me, it's seeing the guys, right? Whether it's the new guys like Emi Garcia or guys like Maya Yoshida, Marco Royce, who have never won a league title before, right? Who are at the end of their careers. And just trying to go around and thank everybody, right? And then there was a moment where, I was just like with my wife, and she's like, I'm proud of you, right? No. And like my wife's a ball buster, right? So like it was great to like.
I'm like, wow, you said it the first time.
If my wife said that, I'd be like, and I forgot to empty the dishwasher.
But no, just to have my family there and for us all to be together and to celebrate with this, the non like playing staff, but like the front office, the greater front office, the marketing crew, the ticketing crew, the media relations crew, like all those people in the tent afterwards, like just great. Just kind of go around and try and thank everybody because my job is easy, right? And I think there's so many people who don't get the recognition, who deserve it and who suffer through it. So
yeah, who's the? I apologize because I don't remember, but he's always profiled. Is he the kit man? Is the
Raul?
Raul, the guy. He has
been
like
there from like the beginning.
He has like all the
he's got the full Thanos now.
Yeah. I mean, he's. I've seen a couple things. LA Galaxy put out a little, like YouTube pieces about him, but he seems like somebody that the team really kind of
soul kind of
rallies around and an important figure to the club.
There's no doubt in any professional team, like your kit man is like the glue that holds the whole thing together, right? I mean, he's the plug. He knows everything. He can take care of guys, and Raul's been there forever, right? I mean, he's got the 6 rings and he's a legend, right? And so he could tell
the baby mama, hey, he was training. He wasn't. I was with him.
I'm not trying to make anything hot, right?
What are you talking about?
But like, I'll just tell you, like Raul was there. Like, if you need to like get like some gear, right, or if you need like a shot of jalapeno tequila, like he's your guy, right?
I like this guy already.
He's a
Can we
real,
get that jacket in double XL, bro? Is that possible?
Amazing, man. Yeah, there's just a seeing you guys lift the trophy and from everything from Ricky Puig walking in into like onto the pitch and everything. There was just a real especially since you had just done the show. There was just like, man, I'm happy for Will. This is like a good moment, and it's a good story because there's something
when the humanity behind the
when action. The Galaxy, obviously one team is going to win and one team is going to lose, but there's something about an LA Galaxy that is a struggling side in Major League Soccer. I think hurts Major League Soccer. So there's a little bit of they arguably the face of the league at times, and there's I'm curious about when the team. How much do the other GMs bust each other's balls? Because there's obviously, hey, we beat you or whatever, or you guys are struggling or whatever. But how loose is it when it comes to those conversations with each other?
No, it's real loose, especially when we get together, right? Because there's a couple different times a year where we all get together, and those are great, right? Because you can kind of, and then like you're usually talking about different things, and so if you're like whether it's roster rules or player development, and guys can kind of like throw some jabs in, right? And like I'm not one to shy away from talking some smack, right? So like it does come back as well, but it's like we in the hard times we're kind of easy on each other because we all know like how tough this league is. I really think it's harder to win in this league than it is in other leagues because of the way our league is structured. So we're easy when it's dark. So thankfully my phone's been all right, or guys understand like what I'm going through. But like the moments of levity are great, and we're not quite at the like just throwing stuff out on the WhatsApp chat because there's still a lot of turnover, and you have these international guys who maybe aren't used to it yet, right? And it's different, but when we get together, whether it's like All Star or we just got together around GA Cup, like it's great because you get to see your peers and we're all going through this together, and like you sort of every time you get together, it's like a snapshot of what's happened over the last 6 months. So
because you think all the beef is just on the pitch,
right,
bro? It's like even the GMs
it's got to be at least fun in the group chat. Like even if you do got beef, that's when you can drop the jokes. I guess you mentioned international guys. How hard is it for someone to come in from outside of this league, even if they were a GM or director, sporting director elsewhere? And they must walk in the group chat. They must be like, dude, what the hell is this? Is it something that they can prepare for, or there is just a natural learning curve? And how long do you think that is?
I think no matter, whether you're a coach or a sporting director or even a player, like you cannot come in and adapt without help. Like you need to have somebody who knows what's going on. I'll use Megan Cameron, who I worked with at the league office for a long time. She's in Miami now. I think she's the only person in the Miami front office who speaks English, right? In the soccer operations side, right? But she's like indispensable to that. I mean, she's been there, throughout everything, right? And like you need to have somebody who knows the rules, who can help people understand what's going on. And then, it's usually like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? Even Bob Bradley, right? He had stepped away from the league for a long time, went to Europe. He came back and he's like, wait, what? What?
I can't sign Mbappe. What?
Right, and now, there's allocation now. Like all these things change, and like you need to have a support system of people who understand, right? And that's the same thing for coaches, right? If you're going to bring in an international coach, like you got to have people who understand MLS, and it's not just like there's that like the American player mentality, but like you got to have people who know what it's like to travel to Orlando, right? Like we're flying from LA today, we're in New York. We take a bus to Philly on Monday. We play on Wednesday. We fly back on Thursday, right? Like that trip is like that's like all the trips you would have in England.
Yeah.
Like
That's like
distance-wise.
That's conference league.
All the trip. That's all the travel you would have like for the season in 7 days, right? We went, like I said, we went from LA to Vancouver to Costa Rica back to LA. It's like that's just different. You don't do that. You literally cannot do that anywhere else because like the country of Italy is the size of California, and so. Right. You got to have people who know what that's like. And what does that mean for sports science and recovery, right? If you're used to having a 4-day training block every week because you went to, Liverpool from North London, like you can't do that, right? You need to have a rest day or you need to figure out how you're going to spend a whole day traveling from LA to New York. And what does that mean for your preparation? So you have to have people who know the league, who understand it. And I'm not saying it's impossible that somebody from the outside could get it right away, but I think you're asking something really, really difficult if you don't have that right support structure in there.
It just reminds me of like when Chelsea fans were freaking out that they had to go play in Kazakhstan and Astana, and they're like, "This should be illegal." And I'm like, "Oh, you mean Vancouver to Miami?
right.
Is that what you mean?"
Or like, we got to go play in Moscow on a plastic pitch. I'm like, which one? Because we got 3 in the Pacific Northwest that we go to every year. Right?
Yeah, there's a couple pitches that some of the aging superstars are injured to play on because they will get injured if they play on.
The other thing I wanted to ask, I'm glad I remembered. Every year, The Athletic, they put out the anonymous MLS GM survey. Mm-hmm. So I obviously, I'm not going to ask you if you are a part of it.
Point at what you say.
I'm on there. I'm on. Yeah.
Okay. So this is always for MLS sickos like us. This is like it's our TMZ. It's our like
you get to peek behind the curtain.
Like they can't put their name to it, but they're saying some of the things we're all sort of talking about. But the one statement that stood out that I vividly remember was and there's obviously you're not in any space to really comment on this too aggressively, but the Apple TV deal. There was a statement, that was the one that got a lot of publicity. Some GM said that the Apple deal is not a good deal, that it's not getting to the most amount of fans and stuff like that. And again, not asking you to corroborate it.
You have to say nothing
like
here.
But I'm curious just about the GM survey. Is it exciting? Is it a fun thing to be a part of?
Are you taking notes throughout the year? This is coming up.
I'm gonna get the headline next.
I'm gonna spit when this comes up.
What is that moment like?
No, I mean, like it's always, you're curious to see what questions they're asking, right? Because I think that's like an indicator of where fan sentiment is or what people are talking about, kind of like in the discourse. It's good, like we can bring it up when we get together at those GMs meetings. It'd be like, all right, who is this, right? Like,
I know you know, like you be reading something like, that was Steve, bro.
Guess who?
Yeah. But there's like 29 other guys, right? So you might think it's one dude. And it's like, oh, actually, that was me. And you're like, you got me. But we have fun with it, right? And I think it's a good opportunity. And look, there's some things that you just can't comment on freely because of league rules, right? Sure. The Apple deal being one of them. You guys trying to stitch me up. I appreciate that.
It's not you.
It's not you. Somebody said
it.
That was not me, by the way. For the record, I will say that.
We'll spin the wheel of GM, and whoever lands on it is going to say it.
But yeah, like there's times where it's just like it's good to be able to kind of give your thoughts on something with the right prompts and just know that you can kind of speak freely about it, right? And then what I really want to see is like, what do the other 29 answers look like, right? I mean, you got they give 2 to 4 answers for any given thing, but like, what do the other responses look like, right? Because I think that's also really interesting too. So, tell those guys The Athletic to release the tapes.
It's wild how it's like I see statements like that, or even just within the soccer media landscape. There's people like us. There's the Athletic, but it doesn't really ever get out of that bubble, because I see a statement like that. From the anonymous GM survey, that should be on First Take. That should be like a GM and Stephen A screaming about all this other stuff.
Asking for mainstream media support for MLS.
I'm just curious as to what is the thought around like that? Like why? I mean, we can always have the conversation like, why doesn't ESPN sort of talk about it more?
They don't have Apple TV.
Yeah.
Cut that. Cut that.
But no, like it getting out of that that bubble, would that
hitting the mainstream?
Yeah. Would that increased pressure be exciting, or is it like kind of nice that you don't have to deal with it to that degree?
No, I would definitely rather have more pressure, right? Because I think with more attention, it ratchets everything up, right? And then it also forces people to look at why this league is the way it is, right? And so I think it's a good thing to call it out. And look, we can't be shy about or afraid to acknowledge where we are, right? We're not at the top of the pyramid like the NBA is or like the NFL is. And so we have to establish ourselves and establish ourselves as continuing to be growing and a league on the rise, right? But that's really important. So not shying away from what's not working, but being kind of proud about it. So I think the more we can amplify it, the better it is, right? And I think as a general rule, the more people who can watch our games, like the better our league will be, right? Those two things work together to put more pressure on GMs, on owners, on players, and that raises the level, right? Because the reality is in England or Europe or other domestic sports, it's like the pressure is so high that like of course the players need to rise to the moment, right? Yes,
Sure.
the money is there, but like you can't go out and have a nice dinner if you don't perform on the weekend, right? So that and sometimes that's not super healthy, but I think that pressure does make diamonds, right? And so we need to find the different ways that we can to make sure that we keep the pressure up and we keep on setting that standard, higher and higher, driving it forward.
Yeah,
Marcelo Bielsa said that he thinks players come to this league and it's too relaxed. And I think that part of that conversation is that there is toxicity associated with that pressure that sometimes but there's a line of diminishing returns, right? Maybe it goes too far, but there's some of that additional pressure that definitely helps.
Yeah, there's an anonymity to everybody involved in the sport that there is a little less pressure. And again, you do not have to comment on this, but this is just us being genuine about our show. We made a lot of like Emil Forsberg jokes and everything in the news and everything going on in his personal life. And it's like, it's such a crazy reality show.
Also because I grew up without a father. So
so there was familiarity. There's a little bit of expertise.
Yeah. I come from a different perspective.
So, but the idea that's like something like that can happen and like public news, and it's just not even. It doesn't
crickets.
It doesn't even scratch the surface of like even the diehard like soccer media landscape in the U.S. I think there was even a fair amount of like, oh no, we shouldn't talk about this because it's not about the sport. It's almost too personal.
For some people, it might be too. I don't want to upset the league. I think that's
burning bridges. Like there's a little bit of that because the
we're in Europe. They're just holding blowtorches, ready to burn all the bridges.
Is it? Yeah. It's like how do you balance that? Not having that toxicity and then also being like, but if there was this kind of scrutiny. I mean, imagine where we would kind of be, like as far as the quality of the player, of the American soccer player, because the concern or the criticism is always, oh, there's no promotion relegation. The players have really nothing to play for, and then, but we have to find ways to put that pressure. I mean, and again, respectfully and fairly,
right, without the toxicity.
It's hard, right? And look, I don't. Just take that, right? I'm not sure like the Pittsburgh Riverhounds being in MLS would make the league better, right? I think it's one of these things that I think people look, and there's a lot of there's haters out there, right? There's people who have a view of MLS from 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I mean, my buddies and I used to make jokes about MLS, when we were growing up, but now, and you see, I think with players too, when foreign players come into the league, they're like, it's a lot harder than we thought, right? The league is actually a lot better. We don't know these guys like we do in Europe. But when you run into guys like, a Christian Espinoza in San Jose or Ojeda and Angulo in Orlando, and you're like, bro, I don't know who these guys are, but they're fast and they're good, and it's just a different dynamic, right? So and I think some of that not having that toxicity is good, right? But at the same time, it's just it's kind of just a different league in that way.
Sure. Yeah.
I know we're getting up there, right? We talked about it. We joked around about a 4-hour episode. We're pretty close to it. But I want to play a game. And we didn't even talk about this before.
Okay.
So I also want to take like a minute so we can think about this. I said maybe 2 or 3 each. We're going to ask you questions. Instead of saying fact or fiction, I want you to say pro or rel. Okay? So it's either yes or no. And you don't have to pontificate beyond that. Just it's either pro if it's a yes, rel if it's a no.
I'm going to apologize to Jamie right now.
All right, we're putting you on the spot here. I'll ask first. You think about your question.
Okay, sure.
I have one. There's not enough teams in the league.
Rel.
Okay, that was quick too.
All right. Go with another. I'm trying. Also, just things we would change about that.
Yeah, or just anything.
Oh, okay. Actually, I do have one because I was gonna ask this.
But put in a statement.
The statement: we are changing to the European calendar.
Pro.
Ooh, okay. Can he expand on that or no?
If he wants to, it's up to you. I said he doesn't have to.
All right.
I said he doesn't have to. We'll just leave it at that. You put in the comments what you think. There will be a Mexican team in MLS in the next 10 years.
Rel.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, he's in the owners' meetings, bro.
Yeah.
Oh man. What's another one?
You got another one? I got
one.
Go. Okay. Until we figure out something that competes with the UEFA Champions League, we'll never compete with Europe for the best players.
This is a couple of questions. Rel.
Okay. Wow. I'm shocked by that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn, I can't.
Okay, I got another one.
I mean, I've asked already a bunch.
Yeah.
Mine, yeah.
But I'm so say it as a statement though. He kind of has to pick one side, which is what I like. If USL does implement promotion and relegation, that will help MLS.
Pro.
If it doesn't.
If it does.
Oh, if it does.
These questions are too confusing. The format is...
If they do pro rel.
If they do implement pro rel, it will help MLS.
I think pro rel will help I think USL pro rel will help American soccer.
Okay. Okay, let's just do it then. Do you see pro rel happening in MLS within 10 years? Pro rel will happen in Major League Soccer.
Rel.
All right.
Easy rel. You can make it 20 years, 30 years.
He said before you finish the sentence. He was rel. The roster rules will be less confusing post World Cup.
Pro.
Okay.
Yes!
That one was speaking into existence.
That one's a manifesting pro.
I don't got anything else. I think, are you good?
Soccer-specific stadiums are better than NFL stadiums converted to soccer.
Pro.
Okay.
Shout out, though, to, I will say, the atmosphere at Mercedes-Benz is bananas.
Same thing with Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte. I haven't been to Charlotte recently, but and those Seattle games, when it's rocking, it's rocking. So, but give me a soccer-specific stadium any day of the week.
Okay.
Sure. All right.
I have one more.
Okay, then. It'll be the last one.
There will be a significant bump in interest in soccer in America post-World Cup.
Yeah, pro.
Okay.
Pro.
But the hezzy, though.
Yeah,
the hezzy.
Soccer's pretty popular, right? I think 32 years ago, the issue was that soccer wasn't popular, right? Now the issue is like soccer is too popular, right? And like everybody younger than me has grown up, playing Xbox and PlayStation, FIFA. You've been able to I used to have to the only time I ever cut school was to go watch Champions League games when they were on, the final would be on Wednesday, right? And so we'd run back to my parents' place from school because that was the only time you could watch a European game. Mm-hmm. Now, a kid can wake up here in New York and by 1 o'clock, you've watched every Premier League game, every La Liga game, every Serie A game. You can stream them all at the same time. The math has flipped, right? And so now, soccer is really popular here. We watch a ton of soccer. It's can MLS differentiate itself from the other leagues? I think that's the big...
Become the league of choice.
Become the league of choice, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we used to cut school to watch Champions League, and now we can just neglect our kids when Champions League is on.
Bro,
so
I neglected
or on the weekend, right? They don't have to wait for Champions League.
It's adult Saturday morning cartoons. I'll say it forever.
Yeah. I love you, Evie.
Will Kuntz, we've been speaking for over an hour. This is, again, I applaud you for coming through and doing this. I know it's a very difficult time in your career and in the in the LA Galaxy for the club as well.
Yeah, across your whole career, you've made a career out of being a very good decision maker, and I'm glad you let that drop so you would come to the show.
Look, no, it's real simple. Last year, right, we're cruising. I go on with you guys, weekend before we can win the Western Conference title. We lose in a heartbreaker to Houston. So I'm hoping that we get the same sort of like change in fortunes, right? Like going on this podcast is going to turn us around.
Bump
right?
is what we call it.
It's not just my belly. It's the bump.
Will Kuntz, thank you so much, man. You're obviously you're playing Red Bull this weekend, so best of luck there. We are
Let's start that bump now.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah. What a way to turn around the season.
It's just something when anybody comes in town to play Red Bull, we're always like, away Team FC, let's go. Will Kuntz, thank you so much for joining us.
And
man.
I guess we get our rings.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
mail.
We'll get on that. Yeah.
Cheers,
Thanks for having me, guys.
What a gentleman Will Kuntz is, huh?
I know. And look, I've already seen some. I'm already predicting some of the comments. I've already seen some of the comments from after the result this weekend for LA Galaxy, and a lot of people. Yes, they're mad at players. They're mad at coaching.
They seem
staff.
to know the whole front office staff. They are mad at.
They're like, who is the ball kid in the 28th minute?
Who is the substitute sous chef that came in for those 2 weeks last year?
You gotta appreciate that passion that a lot of times people think MLS fans are not as like diehard as some other clubs all over the world and stuff like that, and that's it couldn't be further from the truth. So and even after the game.
Just because there's no flares doesn't mean they don't care, huh?
Put it on a shirt,
huh? Bumper sticker right there, folks.
Garber's taking notes.
He's like, not bad. That's corporate marketing table stuff.
Let's copyright that.
Yep. And steal in the 11.
So, but Christian Ramirez, the striker for LA Galaxy, after the game, in the post-match press conference, first thing he said was like, that he apologized to the fans. He apologized to the traveling fans for spending their hard-earned money to watch a performance like that.
Yeah.
And look, they're. As far as seeing the conversation that we had with Will, like the one thing I did feel is like there is that taking of accountability. Like it's not it's everybody else's fault. It's MLS's fault or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like these are. He mentioned it in the conversation as well, but just like,
and we gave him that. We opened that door for him
yeah,
to walk
please
through and
take
be like, yo, it's these rules. It ain't me, bro. Fire the rules, dog.
You've done nothing wrong.
Yeah. It just hurts that people view me as the bad one here when I'm just so right. So he didn't take that.
Yeah. And, Chris Ramirez is highlighting that fans spend their hard-earned money to go travel all across the country.
All very true.
And to watch a performance like that is obviously not great. So, look, Galaxy, they have their issues.
Yeah.
They have a lot to figure out. They still have not won a game. And it's all so crazy because they just lifted the MLS Cup trophy just a couple months ago.
It's like something like 120 days or something like that. Something crazy.
It's one of those just like, it's like, what have you done for me lately? Yeah. But that's kind of lately.
Pretty lately, yeah.
That was pretty lately. So it's wild to go from that high to like where they are now. And obviously, you just like, you wish them the best. And so getting to chat with Will, it's like he's a very friendly guy, super nice dude, and genuine.
Also, you can tell he's like a sports genius, man. This guy,
yeah.
When we talk, I think sometimes I'm playing chess, bro. I'm barely playing checkers. I'm playing dice against the wall compared to what he's talking about. So it's really cool.
Little CeeLo,
yeah, I know, man. Hey, 4, 5, 6.
So shout out to Will. Shout out to LA Galaxy for making that happen. Like we said, like I'm sure there's plenty of other outlets that would have loved to sit down for an hour with the Galaxy GM, but no.
Sorry,
but they come through the Cooligans.
They heard Cooligans.
They know. They know what they know the real deal. So thank you again, Will Kuntz. Thank you everybody else for tuning in. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow us everywhere. Follow us on Blue Sky at soccercooligans.com. Follow and subscribe. Like this video on YouTube. Do all the things you're supposed to do.
There's your chores for the week.
Exactly.
Do it all. It's just buttons, bruh.
All right, and do your homework. All right, you're getting your mom's upset. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms.
Your vitamins, whatever. Hey, happy Mother's Day to your wife.
Okay, all right. You said it that was weird.
Very aggressive. Hey, you know what? Real quick, FaceTime your wife.
Give me the phone. I gotta talk to her.
And then give me the phone. I'm walking out of this room. I'm gonna have a conversation with her.
You could have said happy Mother's Day to your own mother, but no, you decided to say it's to my wife.
Because you got a 2-year-old kid. We talk about it on the show. We don't talk about your mom like that on this show. I think it would have been worse. I was like, hey, FaceTime your mother. Let me leave this room.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday with a brand new episode. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Love you guys. Oh, and also, just because there's no flares,
that doesn't mean they don't care.